Captain Roy Bennett stood on the bridge of his cargo ship New Dawn and watched the stars shift as his crew prepared for what would either be humanity's greatest victory or its final defeat. The ship looked like any other freight hauler with its bulky hull and industrial markings, but Roy knew better than anyone that appearances could be deceiving. For 3 years he had commanded this vessel while hauling grain and manufactured goods between human colonies, and the whole time he had been waiting for the signal that had just arrived. The quantum message from Admiral Morrison consisted of only 3 words, but those words meant everything Roy had trained for was about to begin. Protocol 7 was humanity's most classified military operation, and Roy was one of only 1,000 ship captains who knew it even existed. Now that it was active, he had 6 hours to transform his peaceful cargo vessel into a weapon of war. Roy turned to his navigation officer, Sarah Kim, who was already pulling up star charts on her display. "Sarah, I need a course to the Vega system that keeps us away from all known alien patrol routes. We need to arrive exactly 4 hours and 30 minutes from now." Sarah nodded, and her fingers moved quickly across her console. She had been Roy's navigator for 5 years, and during that time she had learned not to ask questions when he gave unusual orders. The course she plotted would take them through 3 different hyperspace jumps along routes that merchant vessels rarely used. Chief Engineer Bob Martinez was already heading toward the cargo holds before Roy could call him. Bob had spent the last 3 years maintaining the ship's disguise, while secretly keeping much more advanced systems in perfect working order. The transformation that was about to begin would require every minute of the time they had available. Roy activated the ship's internal communication system and spoke to his crew of 43 men and women. "This is the captain speaking. All crew members report to your Protocol 7 stations immediately. This is not a drill. We are now operating under wartime conditions, and radio silence is in effect until further notice." Throughout the ship, people began moving with practiced efficiency toward locations that did not officially exist on any blueprint. Hidden panels opened in corridor walls to reveal weapons lockers that had been concealed for years. Storage compartments that appeared to contain spare parts actually held military-grade equipment that had been carefully maintained and regularly tested. In Myeongsanin, the main cargo hold Bob Martinez supervised as his engineering team began removing false bulkheads that had hidden the ship's true nature. Beneath layers of fake cargo containers lay the power cores and weapon systems of a military destroyer. The fusion reactors that had been disguised as cargo refrigeration units came online with a deep humming that Roy could feel through the deck plates. Lieutenant Carroll White emerged from what had appeared to be a standard crew quarters, but was actually a sophisticated command center. As the ship's weapons officer, she had spent 3 years pretending to be a cargo specialist, while secretly monitoring alien military communications and updating target databases. Now she took her position at weapon controls that had been hidden behind false panels in the ship's computer core. The transformation continued throughout the New Dawn as systems that had been carefully concealed revealed themselves. External hull plates shifted and retracted to expose gun turrets that had been completely invisible. Sensor arrays that had been disguised as communication dishes extended to their full size and began scanning space for potential threats. The ship's engines increased power as military-grade drives replaced the civilian systems that had been masking their true capabilities. Roy watched the process with satisfaction as his crew worked with the precision that came from years of secret training. Every person aboard the New Dawn had been carefully selected not just for their technical skills, but for their ability to maintain a perfect disguise while living double lives. They had attended civilian training programs and carried civilian identification while secretly preparing for the war that everyone knew was coming. Similar transformations were taking place throughout human space as the Protocol 7 signal reached other disguised vessels. Mining ships and asteroid belts suddenly revealed themselves to be heavily armed patrol boats. Research vessels monitoring distant planets activated weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. Even passenger liners began shedding their peaceful appearances to become troop transports and support ships. Dr. Helen Carter received the signal at what appeared to be a small geological research station on the far side of Earth's moon. For 20 years she had overseen Project Cornerstone, while maintaining the fiction that her facility was studying lunar rock formations. The truth was that beneath the moon's surface lay the largest manufacturing complex that humanity had ever built. Helen walked through corridors that extended deep into the lunar bedrock where automated factories had been producing ships and weapons in complete secrecy. The manufacturing complex was larger than most cities and had been supplied by cargo ships that officially carried mining equipment and scientific supplies. Every component had been carefully disguised and every shipment had been planned to avoid detection by alien intelligence services. The signal from Admiral Morrison activated production, schedules that had been prepared years in advance. Factories that had been running at minimal capacity suddenly increased to full operation as millions of tons of military equipment began rolling off assembly lines. Ships that had been built in pieces over many months were finally assembled into their complete forms and prepared for launch through hidden tunnels that opened onto the lunar surface. Admiral Susan Price stood in the command center of what alien intelligence believed was a space construction platform in the Centauri system. The orbital facility had been building civilian infrastructure for human colonies, while secretly assembling the components of humanity's most powerful warship. Now the Liberty's Edge shed its disguise as scaffolding and construction equipment retracted to reveal a battlecruiser that dwarfed anything in the known galaxy. Susan had commanded military vessels for 15 years, but nothing had prepared her for the responsibility she now carried. The Liberty's Edge was one of 200 capital ships that had been hidden throughout human space, while maintaining perfect disguises as civilian installations. Space stations that appeared to be research facilities were actually military bases. Mining platforms were really weapons manufacturing centers. Even some asteroids had been hollowed out and converted into hidden fortresses. The deception had required incredible coordination and absolute secrecy from millions of people across dozens of star systems. Engineers had built dual-purpose facilities that served real civilian functions while hiding military capabilities. Soldiers had spent years working as miners and technicians while maintaining their combat readiness. Scientists had published research papers about their work while secretly developing weapons that could change the balance of power in the Galaxy Protocol. 7 was the culmination of 2 decades of preparation that had begun when humanity first encountered alien civilizations and realized that not all of them were friendly. The first Zephyrian patrol fleet to discover humanity's deception arrived at what their intelligence reports called Mining Station Delta 7 in the outer rim of human space. Commander Zektar led 3 heavy cruisers and a dozen escort vessels toward what appeared to be a simple ore processing facility floating among the asteroids. The station showed no unusual energy readings and responded to their approach with the expected civilian frequencies that requested safe passage for mining operations. Captain Pete Jackson watched the alien ships approach from his command center deep inside what the Zephyrians believed was an automated mining platform. For 18 months he had overseen the careful maintenance of this deception, while his crew of 300 military specialists lived and worked in hidden sections of the massive facility. The mining equipment was real and functional, but it served to disguise the most heavily armed fortress humanity had ever built. Pete activated his communication system and spoke calmly to the approaching alien fleet. Zephyrian vessels, this is Mining Station Delta 7, requesting that you maintain safe distance from our operations. We have active excavation in progress and cannot guarantee your safety if you approach within 10,000 kilometers, Commander Zektar responded, with the arrogant tone that had become typical of alien communications with human civilians. Mining facility, you will shut down all operations immediately and prepare for boarding. This system is now under hegemony control, and all human activities are suspended pending relocation. Procedures. Pete looked around his command center at the faces of men and women who had spent over a year pretending to be miners and technicians. While secretly preparing for this moment, Chief Weapons Officer Linda Davis had her hands poised over controls that could unleash enough firepower to destroy entire fleets. Navigation Specialist Mark Thompson was already calculating targeting solutions for every alien vessel in sensor range. The mining station began its transformation as hidden panels opened throughout the massive structure. What had appeared to be ore processing equipment revealed itself as the largest collection of defensive weapons ever assembled in one location. Gun turrets emerged from disguised storage bays while missile launchers extended from positions that had been camouflaged as industrial machinery. Commander Zektar watched in growing alarm as his sensors detected energy readings that should have been impossible from a civilian facility. The mining station was generating power levels that exceeded most military bases, and weapon signatures were appearing all across its surface. He tried to retreat but discovered that his ships were already within the engagement range of weapons that his technology could not properly identify. Pete, Jackson spoke again with the same calm tone he had used throughout the deception. Commander Zektar, you came to the wrong neighborhood. This is your only warning to withdraw from human space. Immediately, the alien commander responded by ordering his fleet to open fire, but his weapons had no effect on target that seemed to absorb energy blasts without taking damage. The mining station's defensive shields were based on technology that alien science had never encountered and could not penetrate. When Pete gave the order to return fire, the results were devastating beyond anything the Zephyrians had imagined possible. Quantum torpedoes phased through alien shields, as if they did not exist before detonating inside enemy ship hulls. Gravity manipulation weapons crushed Zephyrian cruisers like empty cans while their crews had no time to send distress signals. Within minutes, the entire alien patrol fleet had been reduced to drifting wreckage with no survivors to report what they had discovered. Similar encounters were taking place throughout the galaxy as other alien forces stumbled upon humanity's hidden capabilities. In the Tau Ceti system, a Krillian reconnaissance group approached what appeared to be a damaged human cargo vessel, drifting powerless near a gas giant. The ship had been broadcasting distress signals for 3 days and showed no signs of life aboard. Commander Nancy White had been waiting in the disguised fighter Stardust for exactly this kind of opportunity. Her ship looked like a civilian rescue shuttle, but contained weapons and defensive systems that surpassed anything in the Krillian military. When the alien ships moved close enough to investigate the apparently helpless cargo vessel, Nancy activated her true capabilities. The cargo ship was actually a weapons platform that had been playing dead while alien forces moved into position. As soon as Nancy gave the signal, the vessel came to life and began destroying Krillian ships with plasma cannons that sliced through their hulls like heated knives through butter. The aliens had no time to understand what was happening before their entire squadron was eliminated. News of these impossible defeats began reaching alien command centers across the galaxy, but the reports were so unbelievable that many commanders dismissed them as equipment malfunctions or communication errors. The idea that humans possessed military technology superior to anything in the hegemony was simply too absurd to accept. Unfortunately for the aliens, the evidence continued to accumulate as more of their forces encountered humanity's true capabilities. On the occupied world of New Geneva, Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Brown had spent 6 months pretending to be a captured human administrator while secretly coordinating resistance operations. The Vorthak occupation force believed they controlled a population of defeated civilians, but they had actually been living among special forces operators who had been waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. When Protocol 7 activated, Kevin sent signals to sleeper cells throughout the planetary population. Men and women who had appeared to be farmers and shopkeepers suddenly produced military equipment that had been hidden in underground caches for years. The Vorthak garrison found themselves facing an uprising by enemies who possessed weapons and training that made their own forces look primitive by comparison. The psychological impact on alien forces was even more devastating than the physical destruction. Every human civilian became a potential threat, and every human facility might be hiding weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The comfortable superiority that alien species had felt when dealing with apparently primitive humans evaporated as they realized they had been fighting an enemy that had been holding back its true strength. Dr. Alan Foster watched alien communication networks from his monitoring station hidden beneath the Antarctic ice. For 15 years, he had been tracking hegemony fleet movements and strategic planning while maintaining his cover as a climate researcher. The intelligence he had gathered was now being used to coordinate human attacks on alien supply lines and command centers that the enemy believed were secure. The galaxy was beginning to understand that humanity had never been as weak or unprepared as they had appeared to be. Within 72 hours, the strategic situation across the galaxy had changed so completely that alien commanders could barely comprehend what was happening to their forces. The Zephyrian hegemony found itself fighting a war against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once, while their own fleet struggled to understand how human technology had become so advanced without anyone detecting it. General Claire Davis commanded Operation Boomerang from her mobile headquarters aboard the ship Retribution, which had spent 2 years disguised as a deep space research vessel. Her mission was to coordinate the liberation of occupied human worlds while simultaneously striking at the supply lines that kept alien fleets operational. The intelligence that Dr. Alan Foster had gathered over 15 years of secret monitoring was now being used to target hegemony weak points that the aliens never knew existed. Claire studied the tactical displays that showed human forces moving throughout previously occupied territory with speed and coordination that should have been impossible. Ships that had been hiding as civilian vessels were now working together as integrated battle groups with communication systems and command structures that had been secretly maintained for years. The deception had been so complete that even human civilians on many worlds had no idea that their neighbors included military specialists waiting for activation orders. The first major liberation began on the world of Haven Colony, where 3,000 human settlers had been forced into labor camps by Krillian occupation forces. What the aliens did not know was that nearly half of those settlers were actually special forces operators who had volunteered to be captured so they could gather intelligence and prepare for eventual rescue operations. Major Tom Wilson led the breakout from Labor Camp 7 when he received the activation signal through a communication device hidden inside what appeared to be a standard medical implant. Within minutes, the camp's human prisoners had armed themselves with weapons that had been smuggled in over months of careful planning. The Krillian guards found themselves facing enemies who possessed better training and equipment than their own security forces. Similar uprisings occurred simultaneously across 12 different worlds as human populations that had appeared defeated suddenly revealed their true nature. Farmers produced military-grade weapons from hidden caches buried in their fields. Shopkeepers activated communication networks that allowed perfect coordination between resistance cells separated by thousands of kilometers. Even children who had seemed traumatized by occupation were actually carrying coded messages between adult operatives. The psychological impact on alien forces was devastating as they realized that every human they encountered might be a potential enemy with access to advanced weapons and military training. Occupation troops began requesting evacuation from worlds they had previously controlled with confidence. Some alien units simply abandoned their positions rather than face enemies who could appear anywhere at any time. Captain Nicole Adams commanded what alien intelligence believed was the exploration vessel Odyssey, but was actually humanity's most advanced stealth ship. Her mission was to capture High Commander Vexthor and other hegemony leaders who were meeting at a secret military base in the Proxima system. The base was hidden inside a hollowed-out asteroid and was supposed to be completely invisible to enemy detection. Nicole had been tracking alien leadership movements for months while maintaining her cover as a scientist studying interstellar phenomena. Her ship possessed sensor technology that could detect energy signatures through several light years of space and stealth capabilities that made her completely invisible to alien scanning systems. The hegemony leaders had no idea they were being watched as they planned their response to humanity's unexpected resistance. The Odyssey approached the hidden base through an asteroid field that provided perfect camouflage for a ship that already could not be detected. Nicole's crew included specialists who had spent years studying alien psychology and communication methods, so they could predict exactly how enemy leaders would respond to the changing military situation. The intelligence they gathered would be crucial for ending the war quickly and permanently. Dr. Alan Foster continued monitoring alien communications from his secret facility beneath Antarctica while coordinating sabotage operations throughout hegemony space. The monitoring devices and computer viruses that human exploration teams had been planting for decades were now activated simultaneously across hundreds of star systems. Critical alien installations began experiencing system failures that their technicians could not explain or repair. Spaceports lost their navigation systems just as supply convoys were arriving with essential equipment. Military bases found their defensive shields failing at exactly the moments when human attack forces appeared in their sensor range. Communication networks that had operated flawlessly for centuries suddenly began broadcasting false information that confused alien commanders and disrupted their ability to coordinate responses to human attacks. The sabotage campaign was so widespread and perfectly timed that many alien species began to suspect they were facing an enemy with capabilities that bordered on the supernatural. How could humans have penetrated so deeply into hegemony infrastructure without being detected? How had they managed to plant sabotage devices in systems that had been built and maintained entirely by alien personnel? What the aliens did not understand was that human exploration and diplomatic missions over the past 20 years had included specialists whose real purpose was intelligence gathering and infrastructure mapping. Every trade agreement had been an opportunity to study alien technology. Every scientific exchange had allowed human experts to identify vulnerable points in enemy systems. Even tourist visits had been carefully planned reconnaissance missions. The hegemony's member species began to fracture as each group realized that their own territory and technology had been compromised. The Vorthek Empire accused the Krillian Collective of security failures that had allowed human infiltration. The Ethereal Confederation questioned whether their alliance with more primitive species had exposed them to unnecessary risks. Some smaller species began sending secret communications to human forces offering to change sides in exchange for protection from hegemony. Retaliation. Lieutenant Colonel Kevin Brown coordinated ground operations across 17 different worlds as human. Resistance cells revealed capabilities that alien occupation forces had never suspected. What had appeared to be scattered groups of defeated civilians turned out to be perfectly organized military units with access to equipment and supplies that had been hidden for years. The tide of war had turned completely as humanity demonstrated that their apparent technological inferiority had been nothing more than an elaborate deception designed to lull their enemies into overconfidence. 6 months after the failed peace talks, Admiral Jake Morrison stood once again in the conference chamber of Harmony Point Station, but this time, the situation was completely reversed. The 12 species that had formed the Zephyrian hegemony now sat as defeated supplicants while human representatives occupied the positions of power. The war that was supposed to end with humanity's extinction had instead resulted in the complete dissolution of the galaxy's most powerful military alliance. High Commander Vexthor sat in restraints designed specifically for his species after his capture by Captain Nicole Adams and her stealth ship crew. His 4 eyes no longer held the arrogant confidence that had characterized his demands for human surrender. Instead, he stared at the table while Jake outlined the terms that would govern the post-war galaxy. The other alien representatives showed similar signs of defeat as they realized their technological superiority had been nothing more than an illusion. Jake had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Human Forces after leading what military historians were already calling the most successful deception operation in galactic history. The strategy that had taken 20 years to implement had achieved total victory in less than 6 months of actual fighting. Now he faced the challenge of establishing a new order that would prevent future conflicts while ensuring that no species would ever again underestimate human resolve. The terms Jake presented were harsh but fair, according to human standards. All former hegemony military forces would be disbanded and their weapons turned over to human authorities for destruction or study. Reparations would be paid to human colonies that had suffered under alien occupation. Most importantly, every species would accept permanent human monitoring of their military capabilities to ensure they could never again threaten peaceful civilizations. Colonel Rick Stone had already begun establishing monitoring stations throughout former hegemony space using technology that made alien detection systems look primitive by comparison. The stations appeared to be simple communication relays, but actually contained sensors and weapons that could track every ship movement and energy signature within entire star systems. Any attempt to rebuild military forces would be detected immediately and stopped before it could become a threat. The aliens learned that humanity's apparent technological inferiority had been completely fabricated. Human scientists had been developing advanced technologies for decades while carefully maintaining the appearance of primitive capabilities. Quantum communication systems that operated faster than light had allowed perfect coordination between human forces separated by thousands of light years. Gravity manipulation weapons could crush entire fleets without warning. Most shocking of all, human artificial intelligence had achieved levels of sophistication that alien science considered theoretically impossible. Dr. Helen Carter addressed the Galactic Assembly from her position as Director of Human Technology Development and revealed the true scope of Project Cornerstone and dozens of similar secret initiatives. The lunar manufacturing complex that had been disguised as a geological research station was only one part of an industrial network that extended throughout human space and beyond. Hidden factories on asteroids and moons had been producing ships and weapons for years while maintaining perfect cover as civilian installations. The Assembly learned that human exploration missions over the past 2 decades had included specialists whose real purpose was intelligence gathering and infrastructure preparation. Every trade agreement had been an opportunity to plant monitoring devices and sabotage systems. Every scientific exchange had allowed human agents to map alien technology and identify weaknesses. Even tourist visits had been carefully planned reconnaissance operations that gathered information for future military use. Major Linda Thompson led diplomatic missions to former neutral worlds that were now eager to establish alliance with humanity. Species that had previously avoided association with apparently weak humans now competed for human protection and technology sharing agreements. The power dynamic of the galaxy had shifted so completely that former enemies were begging for the chance to become human clients and allies. The Corvani Empire, which had been humanity's only alien ally during the war, found themselves elevated to a position of special partnership in the new galactic order. Ambassador Elena Martinez worked with Corvani leaders to establish trade networks and mutual defense agreements that would serve as models for other species seeking human friendship. The Corvani had proven their loyalty when humanity appeared weak and would be rewarded now that human strength was revealed. Captain Pete Jackson continued operating, his fortress disguised as a mining station, but now his mission was to protect commercial shipping rather than hide from alien patrols. The transformation of mining station Delta 7 had become legendary throughout human space, as an example of the careful planning and perfect execution that had characterized the entire deception operation. Pete's crew took pride in maintaining their cover even after the war ended because their vigilance ensured that peaceful trade could continue without fear of piracy or aggression. Dr. Alan Foster expanded his monitoring network to include communication intercepts from every known alien civilization. His facility beneath Antarctica now served as the central intelligence hub for human space security operations. The early warning systems he had developed would ensure that humanity would never again be caught unprepared by potential enemies. Any species that began developing aggressive intentions would be identified and neutralized before they could pose a serious threat. The final scene of The Great Deception played out in Jake Morrison's office aboard the command ship Liberty's Edge as he looked out at a galaxy now patrolled by human vessels. The view showed merchant ships from dozens of species traveling under human protection while space stations that had once been secret weapons platforms now served as peaceful trading posts and diplomatic centers. On Jake's desk lay a simple metal placard with words that had become humanity's unofficial motto and a warning to any species that might consider challenging the new galactic order. The message was carved in letters that could be read by optical sensors or tactile examination and translated into every known alien language. It served as a permanent reminder of the lesson that the galaxy had learned at such great cost. Underestimate us once, shame on you. There won't be a twice. The galaxy was finally at peace, but it was a peace maintained by strength rather than hope and protected by vigilance rather than trust.